meeting. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. If you're here not by choice, or by choice. And thank you for the board members and all of the faculty and admin that have come as well for your support. We appreciate that. So Secretary, can you please call the roll?
St. Clair.
Here.
Gallegos.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Figurehead. Here. Erickson.
Here.
Hunt and Holly are not yet here.
I'm here.
Oh, I couldn't see him. I'm
Here.
here. Okay.
And Mr. Holly will be arriving late, so we'll expect him. On the agenda, we have some recognition, which we haven't had in a while, so we're happy to hear about that.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we do get to recognize one of our very own for an accomplishment that is not done by many. And what makes it even more special is it's been quite some time since we've been able to have a recognition and actually have people back in our boardroom. Tonight, I'd like to be able to have us as a school district recognize Lauren Andrick. She is a first grade teacher at Washington. She has been with us for approximately 8 years. And during her journey, she has went along and been able to get her national board certification. Those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a voluntary advanced teaching credential that goes beyond state licensure. The NVC has the national standards for what's to be accomplished by teachers, what they should know and be able to do. To put that in context, the program is very tough because when you look at it nationally, approximately 3% of the teachers in the country have earned their national board certification. What we do know is when our teachers come back, they show the strengths and patience that we want to see with our students. It helps them be able to see how our students can succeed better. They demonstrate outstanding leadership skills. They help expand and influence the expertise of our profession. They open doors for career advancement for our staff themselves, and it provides portability for them as individuals. Simply put, students taught by a national board certified teacher have better outcomes than students that are not taught by national board certified staff. We're very fortunate to not only have Lauren with us, but also our mentor, Jen Vincent, who also renewed national board certification also. So tonight, we get that opportunity to be able to say thank you to Lauren. I had the opportunity to be able to go and visit her class, and I wish I could go back to first grade because it was one of those experiences that I wish I had growing up. So Lauren, please come forward. Real quick. So Lauren, on behalf of the board, admin, we want to be able to present you with this certificate. Saying thank you for your dedication and service to be able to come to this point to earn your national board certification. Also on behalf, we did take the liberties, we ordered you some items from the National Board Certification Foundation that you should be receiving.
Awesome, appreciate it greatly. Thank you for those very kind and thoughtful words. I appreciate all of that, and I just wanted to take a few moments to say thank you for celebrating my recognition this evening, and I also wanted to say thank you to a very amazing group of people that helped me through this process. Number one, thank you to district office who supported me by providing professional development hours to allow me time outside of the school day to write, analyze, reflect, and so on. I also wanted to thank my mentor, Jen, who graciously provided many hours to me to get me started, help me find that right form of writing because it's a very special and unique type of writing for national boards. Also, just guiding me in more ways than I can count. I have a few amazing colleagues that gave lots of time to tell me to keep going and let me know that I could do it and cheered me on and also videoed for me. That's Amy Hamilton. Thank you to my school BFF. And also to Patience Bertana, who was a huge support in videoing as well. This process was single-handedly the most valuable professional development experience I've ever pursued or was given the opportunity to do. I was able to basically be driven by my own passions and desires in literacy, and I selected the path that I wanted and was able to basically explore the realm of literacy and be excited to do exactly what I wanted, but then follow the standards of national boards to prove that what I was doing was impactful and reflective on the students' behalf. So my larger message to you is to please do whatever you can as a district to encourage all teachers that have even the slightest desire to pursue certification. It is worth every time and piece of effort that you can put into it for the payback in return. Thank you very much for your time and have a great evening.
You're more than welcome to stay if you want, but you can also go.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks so much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, the next part of the meeting will be citizens' comments, and it doesn't appear that we have anybody in the room. Is there anybody online?
Yeah, there's one.
Okay. I will just read our welcome to anybody online, by the way, who is either there now or joins hopefully soon to hear what's going on. We appreciate public input and we welcome citizen input. We remind anyone who will comment that please limit their comments to around 3 minutes, and I'll give you a prompt when you're getting close. And also, please remember that matters regarding employees or confidential student matters should not be discussed, nor will we entertain them. As the board is a structured business meeting, we are very listening very intently to what you have to say, but we won't necessarily ask questions or respond as such. So with that, you could bring up any of the online comments or people that want to come.
Hello, this is Deborah Barnes. I just wanted to mention that we started the remote and hybrid learning for Washington. And I've got to say, I'm kind of disappointed at the lack of effort that I've seen put into remote learning. It seems there's a lot of effort put on the hybrid program and getting the kids back in and making sure the hybrid program is set up, but yet the questions and comments that remote families have not really been addressed. I have reached out to the administration about some of my concerns regarding remote PE classes and the significant difference between equipment needed for remote PE classes versus in-school PE classes. There's definitely a difference with what the kids will be doing, and there's some need for stations. And you know, I know I can only speak for myself and my child. I am grateful for the space that I have in my house, but there may be some space constraints for some of the other people in our community where they may not have any space to be doing stations. So I feel like that needs to be taken into account. But also, I'm wondering when the remote students will and the remote program will be considered important to the school district as a whole, because it seems like we've been kind of left out. And I also want to add that there's, you know, people are remote not only by choice, but because the school does not have the ability to accommodate a safe return for all students. So I think we need to keep that into account too, and understand that the remote program is just as necessary as the hybrid. But because this was rushed out, and I know it was rushed out in quite a few districts, And we haven't been given a rationale as to why it was rushed out. We are now kind of just paying the price. I mean, we've had issues where teachers have dropped my kid out of Zoom sessions because they're like, you're not supposed to be here, but on our schedule, we're supposed to be there. So then as a parent who's working full-time remotely in meetings most of the day, I now have a kid who has nothing to do. So now I have to stop my meeting and make sure my kid has something to do because her teachers dropped her and I can't reach anybody. This is all a byproduct of the planning for the remote program not being addressed properly, in my opinion. I feel though me addressing it with the school and the administration and the school board right now is completely unheard. I don't ever feel heard by you all because I never feel that anything's addressed. But I'm also not the type of person to not pull my voice forward because I may be speaking for people who can't speak for themselves. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Deborah. Is there anyone else online who wishes to speak? No? Okay, give it another few seconds. Again, if there's anyone online who would like to speak, please indicate, I think, by raising your hand on the Zoom feature. All right, so we'll move on to the next section of the meeting. Before we head into the district reports, I just want to make sure that the board members have their questions answered to their satisfaction. And online, Rob, do you have all your questions answered, Rob?
Yes.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, first up is T with the business office. She's online.
Welcome, T. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Well, thank you for having us this evening. The first two items on the business section of our report are the FY21 amended tentative budget and the FY22 tentative budget. We're entering the last quarter of the fiscal year, which means it's budget season. And so at this point, what we're asking as the administration is for the board to approve that the tentative FY21 amended budget be placed on display, as well as the FY22 tentative budget. The reason for the FY21 amended budget, there's only been one amended budget since I started in this district, and the first amended budget was the first year I was here. I had to amend the budget that was provided to me. And so now we're going for this one. The reason for this is the law states that if you're going to exceed your expenditures in any given fund by more than 10%, then you're required to file an amended budget prior to June 30th of the fiscal year. That being said, it looks like, well, we actually have exceeded the 10% rule in our Fund 60. And Fund 60, just to remind you all, is our state and construction fund. So I've never seen anyone go to school board jail for not filing an amended budget, but I would always rather follow the law as it is written. So we're coming with the FY21 amended tentative budget, FY22 tentative budget. By placing this on display, the law requires that we have 30 days in between the point that it is placed on display and when we hold the public hearing. That gives the board as well as the community the ability to actually look at the draft of the budget as it stands. But I want you to realize that the information may change between now and the public hearing. And as that information changes, number one, that's legal for it to change. The budget you place on display is not required to be the budget that you adopt. But as those changes occur and I am made aware of those changes, I will also make the board aware of those changes as I come before the board. So those are the first two items on the agenda. Resolutions to again place the FY21 amended tentative budget on display and publish the hearing, which will be held on May 18th at 7 p.m. during our regular board meeting, and also to place the FY22 tentative budget on display and hold our public hearing on May 18th at 7 o'clock at our regular scheduled board meeting. If there are no questions, does anyone have any questions for me?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Great. So the next item on our agenda is the approval of our D75 liaison police agreement with the Mundelein as well as the Mundelein Police Department. Basically administering to you asking for the continuation of what is now a 9-year partnership with the Village of Mundelein and the Mundelein Police Department. What we're requesting is a 4-year contract that has on average 2% increases from year to year to year. And this contract would go from FY22 to FY25. Are there any questions?
T,
Yes.
you said it's a 2% increase every year. We've been doing this 9 years. Typically, how much has it increased year to year?
That one, I do not have that information. I can research that and get it back to you. I do know that we had 3 years where it was held flat. And I want to say that was FY 17, 18, no, it was 18, 19, and 20 that I believe it was held flat. And then FY 21 was the first increase that we had received in 3 years. So that information I do have right off the hand, but I'd have to research the other information.
So 2% increase. And
Rob, we're having,
21 was a 2% increase.
there you go.
Okay, so what we have between FY 21 and 22 is a 2.1% increase, 22 to 23, a 2.1% increase, 23 to 24, a 2% increase, and 24 to 25, a 2% increase. I believe that was your question, but you were breaking up.
Okay.
I have one question while we wait and see if Rob comes back. You had said in the materials ahead of time that we were not invoiced for the contract we had for this year for times when the school will close. Is that correct?
Correct. We have yet to receive an invoice period for this year from them.
But correct, they're not billed days when we're not in.
So we had a significant savings essentially this year from being closed, which more than covers the 2% increases that we're talking about now.
Correct.
Continue that. So if we're not one day, a week or something next year, sick day.
All right, Rob, are you back and did you have your question answered? I think he,
Yeah, he's not in right now.
okay. Well, if he does, when he comes back, we'll circle back.
Okay, then proceeding to the next item on the agenda is a resolution for the board that would authorize Robert Schwartz to act on behalf of the district to intervene regarding a PTAB. And PTAB is a property tax assessment appeals decision. So Robin Schwartz would act on behalf of the district and intercede because we are actually dealing with a significant reduction in the property value that they're requesting. And this property is 345 North Seymour Avenue. And again, this is not at this point authorizing an amount. This is not authorizing anything other than for the attorneys to act on our behalf. So we're requesting that the board adopt that resolution at tonight's meeting. Are there any questions?
T, are we sharing the cost of the attorney?
We are sharing the cost of the attorney. So by us entering into this agreement, it not only allows our attorney to operate on our behalf, but in essence also operate on behalf of the high school because we own the same, basically we're allowed to tax on the same properties. There's a high school tax as well as the District 75 tax. So we actually share the costs of all our PTAB appeals that the attorneys act on our behalf. We share those costs with the high school district. It also puts us at a better advantage to negotiate agreement because there is a much larger, I guess, amount of money to be negotiating within.
So this property would be within the tax increment finance district, right?
I do not know. If I had that question ahead of time, I could have researched it. I don't know where 345 North Seymour is. All I know is we received this appeal and the attorneys asked for this resolution so that they can continue on with our appeal process.
How long do these things typically take to get resolved?
This would be the first one that the district is entering into since I've been in this district, so I don't have an answer for you on that either. These kinds of things I can ask our attorneys if I have the information ahead of time to ask them, like what's the average turnaround. I do know that there is a deadline requirement of when this resolution has to be filed, which is, I believe, April 7th, for them to act on our behalf. That's the only timeline information I've been given.
Oh, don't go out of your way.
Okay.
We'll find out, I'm sure.
Yes.
Any more questions on that topic?
We'll confirm that for now. It looks like it is.
It
It's
is.
right behind the police department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it is, so that they have to be making the case that their assessed valuation is lower than when it started, which might not be totally out of the realm of possibility. And I don't think that property, there was one that was the other strip mall that's here that's south a little bit, a while ago, but and maybe that one as well. But anyway, so.
Well, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak from home tonight. I am on quarantine, and so thank you again. And if you have any questions, I will remain on the board meeting. So thank you.
Rob informed us that his internet went out. He's going to attempt to rejoin, so you might see him trying to.
Hey, there he is.
Oh, there he is. He's the board member.
Speak of the window, yes.
All right, thanks, T. All right. Is there anything more from the business office, or are we going on to teaching and learning?
Teaching and learning is next.
All right, we're on to teaching and learning.
So we're going to have Dale Truding and Pam Pollock be able to start us off and give us the mid-year update in regards to our progress with literacy implementation. So I'll hand it off to Dale and Pat.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi, thank you. It's so nice to see you in the distance in the little square. I can't wait till I can see you for real. We are really very excited to be here, and it is absolutely hard to believe that we're giving a mid-year report. We're anxious to share our update with you and to see if any of you have any questions that we can answer, and we're ready to begin.
All right, Dale, we're ready.
So we have a long list of things that we are going to share with you. Professional updates, current professional learning, summer professional learning, our classroom library, a nice new team that we're forming in each school, which is going to be called the ART team. We did a staff survey where we got 85 responses. We're going to share those results with you. We're going to share a very exciting collaborative effort with Amy Mascara, who does a lot of our professional learning for our two-way immersion. We're going to talk about selecting resources for next year, an assessment toolbox, and then a very exciting endeavor coming up with district and school belief statements regarding literacy. So we're going to take a little look backwards and then a look ahead. So as you all know, we trained approximately 59 teachers last summer using the Orton Gillingham program for teaching kids foundational skills. We have had ongoing professional learning with Stacy Kosoff, who presented the training for teachers this summer. We are actually going to be expanding the training for next summer. There's an intermediate part that we're going to be working through with teachers in grades 3 through 5, as well as some middle school teachers. And we're very excited to say that we're going to partner with the Wakanda School District regarding this OG partnership. They had started it, and that's where we got our trainer, Stacy Kosoff, from. And they love the idea that it was mandatory for our teachers, so they're going to change to a mandatory partnership with Orton Gillingham for their teachers, and they're going to join us on this endeavor. So we're really looking forward to it. I just want to say one thing. Stacy, on her own time, decided to take a group of OG students from Washington and work with them every single day to improve their coding skills. And she sent both Kevin and me a video of a little boy who was reading his first book ever. So it was an authentic assessment of how this program has truly worked, even online. We're going to talk about some more training that's going to go on with our classroom libraries. Professional learning we've been doing on our early release days. We do ongoing coaching and observing in all the schools, and we meet with each team at Carl Sandburg once a week. We have weekly and bi-weekly grade level professional learning during PD times. We've unpacked genre. And there's ongoing collaboration between Pat, the other consultants, and myself. And we provided professional learning opportunities at least once or twice a month to the entire leadership team.
So this slide speaks about where we are and where we're going. And Dale just reviewed the current. Between March and the end of the school year, we are going to start an early implementer team that's called the Artifact Review Team. And what this process will include is a pilot group of teachers from every building who will work to provide artifacts, examples of student work, and come together during a PLC or a team meeting so that we can refine the protocols and processes that we'll have in place for all teachers next year. Our goal is to create a calendar that represents August through May of the next school year so that teachers know upfront the different artifacts that they'll be discussing. When we say artifacts, we're really talking about the 3 windows of assessment. And so it could be observational data that we glean from interactions like conferring, or true artifacts, paper and pencil tools that students have produced. We're particularly excited about this as well because it makes a natural connection to the MTSS process, where oftentimes students are discussed if they're having some difficulty or struggling a little bit in the area of literacy. We will have a collection of artifacts at our side so that we can not only discuss what's going on with the student in the classroom, but refer back to some of the work that we've collected. And so that's going to start this spring as a pilot, and then next year it will be implemented with all teachers. We are finalizing a scope and sequence, which shares the names of the units of study organized by genre and text type and the order in which they'll be taught next year, kindergarten through 8th grade. And usually what we do in a curriculum process is we start with the scope and sequence, and then we create a curriculum map. And then we also, if need be, we look at resources or create some in-house units of study to make it a robust curriculum that's responsive to the needs of all students. And so the dates in the spring and summer section of this slide really represent the scope and sequence, the selection of resources. We are going to create a glossary of English language arts terms so that we can promote consistency across the district. It's really important that all educators and administrators and families and students know common terms and can define them in common ways, so that we can ensure, regardless of the school or the grade level you're in, that you're hearing the same thing and you're understanding it in the same way. We're excited for a launch professional development opportunity on May 7th. And that might sound a little strange because we're launching in May, but we missed out on that this year. And so we thought that in advance of the summer, we would provide the teachers with professional development before they leave for the summer, so that when they start the school year off next year, they have all the tools and content knowledge that they'll need. Over the summer, we're going to be providing some professional learning offerings to support our dual language program, to support our administrators and teachers. I know that Dale has been working with the team who's almost ready to report their findings about the dual language program and the study that they're doing. I had the opportunity to meet David, who's leading that committee, and he is really, really focused on equity and doing what's right for children. So I'm very impressed. You were lucky to get him. And then finally, Dale had mentioned the partnership with Wakanda. When you move over to the right, it seems strange that this time of year we're already moving towards next year, but that's kind of how school calendars work. It's very cyclical. But we're going to continue with our PD plan that focuses on the workshop structure, best practices in literacy, and gradual release of responsibility. You know, I would love to call it year 2, but I'm tempted to call it year 1.5 because we've been very creative in the delivery of professional development this year. And in many regards, it's allowed us to develop relationships with some teachers. So even though the time allotment has been smaller, the volume of times that we meet with teachers has been, I'm going to say, a silver lining of remote professional development. Our hope is to not only have grade level PD next year, but also to design some topic-based courses that are differentiated. And a lot of those topics we were able to glean from the survey, things that teachers were interested in. We're going to continue to support our dual language program and biliteracy framework. And something that we're really going to connect to our artifact review team is making sure that everyone knows the difference between formative and summative assessments. And that's going to be a through line, not only with the PD that we have for teachers, but also when we're building profiles and sharing information with family members, we'll be able to talk about the formative data that's ongoing, that monitors and celebrates growth even across a day or across a week, as well as the summative, which are more those standalone experiences. And that's, you saw earlier a mention of an assessment toolbox. That's where that work is going to live. We're going to practice consistency, which leads to having an open growth mindset and building internal capacity. As a consultant, we love working with Mundelein, but our goal is to eventually say goodbye. And the reason for that is because we have reached so many natural teacher leaders that we've been able to build internal capacity, and the professional development will be able to happen internally. And so this is a journey. Our destination is to make sure that we have a cohesive, consistent, standards-aligned curriculum that supports all teachers and all learners, but most importantly, that we're cultivating and nurturing a celebratory community of readers and writers. This is very exciting. Last summer, we started the process of auditing classroom libraries. I wish that the school year started off where the kids can have that ribbon cutting ceremony that I referred to, or they could get really excited about all those colorful bins of books. We were not able to do that, but the good news is that when they're back in school, they can help us with giving us feedback about how we did. There's nothing like hearing from a kindergartner saying, I love all of these nonfiction books. Or, I once had a kindergarten student that said, Mrs. Pollock, you need to get more fantasy for our classroom libraries. And so we're going to notice the use of genre language as students have access to books. But what we're also going to do in this 3-year initiative is use a different checklist this year, inclusive of things like social and emotional learning texts and texts that, address cultural diversity, and also include some additional subgenres as students are growing in their genre knowledge and awareness of the different kinds of books. Classroom libraries have the potential to introduce students to independent reading that leads to joyous, wonderful experiences about books. And that's really what we want to have happen with our students. Excuse me.
And a very important part of that, Pat, is that independent reading builds students as readers.
You'll have to excuse me. Dale knows this. I had my second vaccine and have had a very bad reaction to it. So I'm struggling a little bit, but I get so excited about literacy. I feel like my energy is coming back. So earlier in the presentation, we talked about the artifact review team. And we've been able to work with Erica and Jason. Those are my 2 colleagues, and Dale as well. I think we've gone through like 3 iterations of ideas across the artifact review team calendar. And as mentioned, we want to have this completed so that the teachers start the school year off with this in their hands. But we also want to have some practice and some role playing and almost some simulations of these meetings with our very brave teachers who have agreed to be part of the pilot this spring. One of the most important outcomes of this is we're going to be able to have a collection of student work that we didn't have before. And there's nothing like students learning from other students. So in addition to using this to gather data and measure growth, I always like to think about starting a lesson. Sometimes we call it immersion when we're immersing students in different types of books, but imagine second graders getting immersed in other second grade students' work. And for some reason, it really resonates when children get to see what other students are able to do. It almost instills like that little nudge of confidence in them. So that's also an important outcome of this team. Our goal is to create an instructional blueprint, which means what's really working well in the whole group setting, what's working well in the responsive small group setting, and how well are the students doing when they go off and try things out on their own. And the goal is that we develop self-directed, independent learners who use all the wonderful tools and instruction that their teachers have shared with them across the school year. And then, of course, I have the same last bullet here about cultivating and nurturing a collaborative learning community. One other thing that's not on this list is that we hope this process instills bravery so that teachers will start to have some peer observations and collegial visits. And so sometimes you start first with talking about student work, and then all of a sudden doors start to open and teachers say, can I come in your classroom and watch you do that small group? Or come on in, I'm inviting you to watch me do the interactive read aloud. That's part of that collaborative learning community. And we really hope that that's an outcome of this process as well. I know that you had an opportunity to look at the survey results. Both of the links were provided in this presentation. The reading link is up top and the writing link is down here. we felt that it was really important to hear the collective voices of teachers in regards to what is currently going well, what units of study resonated with students, what would teachers like to learn more about, what professional books would they like to have in their buildings, and even a little bit of information about, what didn't go so well. And we hope that the teachers felt like this was a safe place to share their thoughts and ideas about celebratory things and about things that they are either interested in having future conversations about or things that they want to learn more of. One of the through lines at the end of each one of these slide decks was to talk about the importance of professional reflection. And that's part of Charlotte Danielson's domains. Domain 4 really highlights how we can reflect individually, as a grade level, as a team, as a school, and as a district. And when we have that opportunity for professional reflection, we can only grow more. And it takes a fair amount of bravery to not only respond to surveys, but then also to reflect on your teaching practices and identify ways that you want to learn and grow more or improve. And so I think that the fact that Dale and I were probably a little wordy in this survey, it was a narrative survey, not multiple choice, and that the teachers really took the time to share their thoughts and ideas with us really speaks to their journey as reflective practitioners. So we were really appreciative for that. And finally, Dale and I are going to split this slide looking ahead. And so our collaborative partnership has Jason, Erica, and myself, along with Amy Mascara, working on a curriculum document that really is inclusive of all students. And so from grades 3 through 8, Amy and I already started our work together, where there's going to be one map with all information on it that speaks to the dual language program, the English development section, as well as the monolingual section of curriculum. And our first meeting, we probably went around the block a few times because we had to get this all right in our minds. And we're also very visual. Amy and I have a similar learning style, as does Dale. And so we needed to see it on the screen before we could agree to the format. But more than that, when you write curriculum, it becomes more about the format. It's more about giving teachers clarity with what they are going to be teaching students, because the outcome of standards aligned teaching is really joyous, enthusiastic learning. And our hope is that the clarity with these documents and the partnership between us is really going to be a pause for celebration, because there will be open communication, there'll be clarity and consistency with all of those documents. So I'm so excited to be able to partner with Amy and David. We're also going to be refining our list of resources. In addition to Dale and I using words a lot, we also had a very long list. And then we realized that sometimes less is more, or maybe someone gave us a little gentle nudge of encouragement about that. But we're going to be analyzing resources across the district so we can make sure that everything that's in the hands of teachers is something that is evidence-based and is appropriate to be using for all the students in the district. I already mentioned the assessment toolbox, and I would say one of the most exciting things, although all of these things are exciting, that will happen this spring is that each individual building will be working on creating a belief statement as it relates to literacy. And they're going to be doing some free association and thinking about words and phrases as it relates to developing readers and writers. And then we'll be able to take those from the 3 schools and synthesize that information to develop a district belief statement as it relates to literacy. And with that, it's a nice segue to Dale, because she's going to speak with you about what it means to be a literate individual.
But before I do that, I want to go back a minute. And I was just reflecting on something that Pat had said about how very excited she is to be working with Amy Mascara and David Nieto regarding a scope and sequence that's going to be appropriate for our dual language classrooms and our monolingual classrooms. So I did a little homework over the past few days because I work with some districts in Lake County and some in Cook County. And I just made calls and said, hey, do any of you have a partnership between your dual language program and your monolingual program, so that when teachers look at curriculum maps, there are similarities and there are differences in delivery models because of the way instruction is delivered in the two different models? And the answer that I got was no. Do you know anyone who's doing it? And I said, yes, just so happens that Mundaline 75 is doing it. And everybody was so interested to eventually see what this is going to look like. So I think that congratulations to the board, and because you're really a leader in this area, and it's going to help kids tremendously make connections between languages. So I'm going to transition to my side now to say what it means to be a literate individual. And I'm actually going to read these to you. And I want you to reflect for a minute and think about things that you may never have thought about when it means to be a literate individual. Literate individuals demonstrate independence with text. Literal individuals build strong content knowledge. Literate individuals respond to varying demands of audience, task, purpose, and discipline. Literate individuals comprehend as well as critique. Literate individuals value evidence. Literate individuals use technology and digital media strategically and capably. Literate individuals come to understand other perspectives and cultures, and how very important in the world in which we live. So as you think about this, I have one question for the board, if it's okay. Was there any one of these phrases about a literate individual that struck you that you really didn't think about as you think about what it means to be a literate individual?
Hi, Dale, it's Lisa. I actually was thinking about like my own kids and when and how did they demonstrate this, and so I think it's a very nice list, not only for educators but for parents to kind of gauge the development of their child in these areas.
Thank you.
So help me understand the first one, independence with text.
So many times people start reading something and they may not understand it all, right? It could be something technical or it could be something philosophical. And so what do you do when you have that text and you have to be able to struggle through it? Do you have the skill sets and strategies and mindset to go ahead and do that?
Okay.
One way that we help students do that is we're reminding them to think about the tools they're using as a reader daily. And if we keep posing that to students, you know, what did you use as a nonfiction reader today? Or what are you using as a mathematician today? You're kind of building that metacognition or that thinking about your own thinking. And the beautiful thing is when little ones can name the tools that they're using, they're building their reading muscles and independence. And then as we go up into the world of adults, if you gave me a manual on how to fix a car, I would have that productive struggle, but I know that I have the tools to rely upon so that I would be able to figure out the car manual.
Thank you. And do you have any, I think our last slide is, do you have any questions, excuse me, for us?
So was the survey anonymous?
The survey was anonymous. We had asked the teachers that if they wanted to use their grade levels, they could, but we did not collect names.
So then why was there reluctance?
Why was there reluctance? I don't think I said there was reluctance.
Okay, well, I'm not sure what the adjective you used, but hesitancy? So it was difficult to, sometimes people didn't, that was the inference that I took.
Well, I think they meant sometimes doing surveys like that can be difficult,
Yes.
fulfilling and rewarding and productive.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So
Okay,
you did have a good response rate then.
Yes,
But one of the highest I've ever seen, actually.
so I'm reminded of an old program that we used to have called Young Authors, where each student had to, quote, write a book, or they were at least encouraged to write a book, and then we celebrated those.
Yeah.
yes. Any opportunities to celebrate kids' work is, it's wonderful for students' self-esteem, for their growth as readers, and for them to want to continue on.
Our hope is next year that the units of study give students opportunities to publish many pieces of writing and to feel like there's an author inside all of them. So be on the lookout for those publishing celebrations because they're really, really wonderful to attend.
I had a question regarding the artifact team review page. You had mentioned you're doing a pilot in the spring. How many is that involving a set number of classrooms, set number of teachers? What does the pilot look like?
It's one grade level from each building. So there's 3 teams that are participating in the pilot, and then the principals are having conversations with the grade level that they selected.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Did you specify which grade level at each school, or you left that up to the principal?
We left that up to the principals.
I just had a question regarding on the next steps page and your statements about belief statements and curriculum maps. And I had actually been on another district's website, totally unrelated to schoolwork, looking for some actually sporting information. And I noticed that they had belief statements. One was for literacy, one was for math, and then they had a quite succinct summary of the educational or the curriculums they use. So do you envision that something that ultimately at the end of this process we should put out on our website? And how?
Yes, yes.
Great, okay. Thank you, by the way, for answering all the questions in our pre-meeting packet.
No problem. It was our pleasure.
If I may add, in addition to the belief statements, I think Dale and I are also probably hopeful of using the district website to celebrate student work so that parents can see without names on it, but what a narrative piece of writing looks like in 2nd grade, but also in a celebratory way, and also have some tips for parents so that the learning is extended outside of the building and there could be that homeschool connection.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
So second, if we don't have any more questions for Dale or Pat, second part is going into some of the numbers, the data to the point. That would be with Dan. Pat and Dale, thank you. Pat, I hope you feel much better.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, everybody. We're going to give a little bit of a breakdown of some of our early literacy data. We've been talking a lot about OG. We're going to look at while we want to look at the last 2 years, we recognize that our data sets are a little bit different. In 1920, we used early literacy from STAR. We did not do that online assessment in our remote setting this year. So we did, though, use what's called the DRA and the EDL2, which are assessments about where kids are on the reading continuum. The beautiful thing about this is that the trends that we see in both of those data, both last year and this year, are very much the same. And so as a team, when we were looking to make this presentation, we opted just to show you the DRA EDL2 for this year to get an idea of where the trends are and to talk through our goals. And so when we look at our data today, we'll be looking at the most recent data from fall to winter. We're going to look at it 2 ways. We're going to look first at our monolingual program on early literacy using the DRA, which is the English version of the assessment. And then we're going to look at the data in our bilingual program. And we're going to look through it through a lens of what it's like to be a simultaneous bilingual. And we use the term simultaneous bilingual so that we can talk about students who are learning 2 languages at the same time. Many of us, maybe like myself, who learned Spanish as a foreign language, we would have been a sequential bilingual. We first learned it in English and then we learned it in Spanish. Then we learned the Spanish. Our students who are going through our 2-way immersion program, once they enter those doors that first day, we consider them simultaneous bilinguals. So with that, we're going to move on to the next slide. So when we look at our data, we broke it down into 3 parts. Our students who are on grade level, our students who are in tier 1, not needing an intervention, but needing some little help. Oh, there you go. Just needing a little help. That's our yellow bar. And then the red bar are our students who need some sort of additional support. So some tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. So we've talked about reading recovery. You may have heard leveled literacy intervention. Those are some of the things that we use as a more intensive intervention. And also understanding that tier 2 is a little more intensive than tier 1, and tier 3 is obviously more intensive than tier 2. And when we talk about tier 1, we're talking about our core curriculum, what Pat and Dale just talked about. And so when you look at these graphs, a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. So on the top, you'll see the first grade monolingual. Can you see you can't see my pointer if I circle something, right? Okay, so I'll do my best to explain it. So first thing, hopefully that jumps right out to you in the first grade monolingual data is that our on-level students in the fall go from 23% of students on level to 36% of students on level without any sort of differentiation in the winter. And that's great. We should be celebrating that. That's a great thing when you consider that the national norms are also moving with our students, right? So that the score you need in the fall should increase over time. So our students then had some accelerated learning. So that's great. And we see that also in our tier 1 with differentiation, moving the yellow bar from 29% to 19%. So what does that tell us? Probably most of those students that made the jump into the green are probably coming from that yellow bar, right? One thing that we want to be very cognizant of, and that's why we're in our literacy rebuild, is to look at the red area. And that is a large chunk of our students in the monolingual program, 49% to 45%. That's still almost half of our students who are needing additional supports beyond what's in the classroom. And so that's what we're addressing with our literacy revision this year. And then again, over the next 3 to 5 years as we build that out. Likewise, if you look down on the second grade monolingual, same idea. We have about similar in our green and yellow, but again, 40% of our students needing some sort of intervention at tier 2, some additional supports. So again, that's what we're doing. That's not to say that we're trying lots of different creative ideas, but really we want to get to a point over the next 3 to 5 years that 80% of our students are in that yellow and green area. That's what our target is. And so as we think about goals from now to the end of the year, and I know Mrs. Drake has talked about this as well, is we have to look at those kids that are ready to move, and we need to apply just a little bit more intensity to those kids so that we can start moving kids a little bit at a more accelerated pace. Next slide, please. When we look at dual language, it's a little bit different because we're assessing students based on language assessments that are built for a single language. So what do I mean by that? When you look at the vertical axis, you are looking at the Spanish EDL2, which is kind of where students fall on that reading continuum. But when you look at the norms for that, it's looking at if students were only learning in Spanish. And the same thing when you look on the horizontal axis, you're looking at it as if students were only learning in English. And so what we have to do as a district when we want to think about where are our students in terms of their simultaneous bilingualism, that is bilingualism that they're building at the same time in both English and Spanish, we have to sort of create a two-dimensional representation, right? So the same idea, students can be on level in one or both. And when we see a student who's on level in one or both, we say they're in that green band, they're at grade level. But we also know that students as simultaneous bilinguals can be up to 1 year behind their monolingual peers, those students that are learning in just one language. And so that blue bar represents all of our students who are either 1 grade level below in one or both of the assessments. And so when we look and say, who are the students that are doing or are where we need them to be, we're looking at both the at grade level and then within the biliteracy zone. And then just like in our monolingual, students are beyond 1 grade level. They're in our interventions. We've broken it down here into 2 levels, in tier 2 intervention in yellow and tier 3 intervention in red. And so I wanted to give you this visual so you get an idea of what the data looks like when we go to the next slide, which you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And we see the same colors, but they're in bar graph form. It's a little easier to read for us, right? And so on the top, when we look at our first grade, we sort of look at the blue and the green together. And you see that about 70% of our students are sort of in that biliteracy zone or at least on grade level. We would expect students to go between the blue and the green as they move through the year, because sometimes vocabulary is going to play a role in that. And so, but what over time, what we'd want to see in 4th and 5th grade, based on the research from dual language programs, it's going to take 5 years, right, or so for students to become biliterate individuals. We want to see that blue decrease over time and that green increase over time as the grade levels go. But when we're talking about early literacy, like I said, they're going to float between them. And so again, we have about 70% of our students in that biliteracy zone. In 1st grade, we had a large chunk of students at the beginning of the year who were in an intensive tier 3 intervention, or that needed an intensive tier 3 intervention. With time, we've moved them into the yellow. Some of that probably is due to our COVID closure in the spring. Those kindergartens who lost out on some oracy building at the end of the year, but they're starting to move to the right, and that's what we want to see. Likewise, in 2nd grade, we see about 79% or 77%. So again, not a ton of change between those 2 bars, because remember, we're going to look at those together. But we see for the future that there is some hope for us when we look at our dual language, or I should say linguistic task force recommendations, which are going to make some improvements on our programming in hopes of moving, again, looking at that 80% of our students want to get to the green by the time they get to 4th and 5th grade. That would be our goal. And then we'll have the recommendations coming in April. So as we move to the next slide, we'll take some questions on the data that you've seen.
Hey, Dan, I just had a quick question, and you may have said this, and I just didn't absorb it. When you say targeting almost at grade level students, is that the same as the yellow bar, or is that a different terminology?
No, that's the yellow bar. It's us saying, like, these kids seem like they're primed to make some substantial growth that can propel them into the green area or the on grade level. And we just need to pay close attention to those students, right?
Okay, thanks. Like I said, I think I just missed.
No, don't worry.
Fine.
So, I have a definitional question. Do we have a classroom that is, quote, bilingual?
What do you mean by a classroom? I'm not sure I understand the classroom that is bilingual.
Like a separate classroom that came in for biliterate? Is that what you're?
No.
No,
No, it's bilingual.
bilingual.
Well, at Washington, we do not.
Okay,
Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, the only classroom that is still considered bilingual is our 5th grade one way, and we have transitioned them to a dual language philosophy. So 5th grade.
okay, so I'm trying to, so the first grade and second grade monolingual students would be those that came to us speaking English as a home language.
Not necessarily. So to get into the dual language program, there either is an application process or there is qualification for dual language or bilingual programming. For our students who are coming in kindergarten, that we give them the pre-IPT, and I'm forgetting what the other assessment is, but it's basically it's the assessment that says, where are they in English and where are they in Spanish? And we give that to all of our students who have a home language on their registration that are not English. And from there, if they qualify for bilingual instruction, as what the state says, our bilingual programming in District 75 is the dual language program. So by default, those students get into the program.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we don't have EL learners or English language learners in the monolingual classroom. Monolingual or bilingual or dual language, as we're using, is a way to describe what the the language of instruction is. So in a monolingual classroom, we would have English language instruction, one language. But you might recall, well, before we had dual language, we did have bilingual classes that were taught solely in a language. Those are also considered monolingual classrooms.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to differentiate, because this is a very different student configuration than what you would have seen in prior state report cards.
You wouldn't see this broken down in state report cards. In state report cards, you would see both of these programming groups as one number, and you wouldn't be able to discern.
Well, I would see something else. If I saw students that were ELL, I would know what their outcomes were, as opposed to this way, where it's dependent on the program they're in, not on their incoming abilities, I guess. Because we've chosen now, if a student comes in, tests and they have a language different than English at home, we test them and say, okay, we got it, then by default, they are going into the dual language program at official grades. Is that correct? Is that
So only if the primary home language is Spanish. If
okay?
it's a different language, then they qualify for English learner support.
Right, so
So then they would potentially go into a classroom that's monolingual instruction
they get support.
and they get EL support.
And I don't know, have any, you know, is that a handful? Is that,
So that
50, is it-
that can be over a quarter of every classroom in some cases. We were looking at that, we actually pulled that data from Ms. Grade's class, one of her grades a couple weeks ago when we were talking. It wasn't in about a quarter of the kids in that grade. So we
Okay.
have a lot of, because the family might choose to not be a part of dual language, or it may be another language that's spoken at home.
yeah,
So the data that was shown today isn't reflective in that way, but we can look at the data by, these are English learners, and we could look at the data that way as well.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just,
We would do that well.
But I think if I'm understanding what Wells is saying, if they were, if in your example, if they've made up a quarter of a particular classroom that's monolingual, that could be part of why some of these numbers, because when you look just at these graphs, it looks like the dual language kids are performing better when you look at the green, blue, and yellow compared to the red. But it might be because there's the ELL supports that are being provided, and so they're not yet performing at those colors. Okay.
well, would it not also be the case that approximately 1/2 of the students that we're reflecting in the dual language program would have been in an English-only classroom otherwise, right? Okay, so I'm not totally off the branch, okay. So I mean, that's what we're seeing in the dual language in part, is the fact that those students that otherwise would have been in a English class, if you will, a monolingual English class, are in with dual language.
I think we have to be careful when comparing our programs. Our criteria is different when we look at our monolingual program and our dual language program in terms of what we're saying, quote unquote, we're not worried about these kids, right? And so I think we have to take that and understand that our goal for all of our students is to become, as Dale and Pat had said, literate individuals. The pathway is going to look different for our dual language students and our monolingual students. We believe all of our students can get there. And so we have to show that based on what the research is saying. So if there's not any other questions, we can move on to our next report. And I'd like to invite up to the podium, the virtual podium, Nancy Hansen, who is our reading recovery teacher at Washington, reading recovery for the county, but also serves for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm sorry, Nancy, if I forget. Serves as our summer school principal. And this year we want to present to you, like we do every year, what summer school looks like for our students as we move into the summer, and how we're going to address literacy or continue the momentum of literacy. But also, I think what's unique about our presentation this year, which we haven't done in the 7 years that I've been here, is to say summer school is all of our students, and that's the umbrella term, and we're going to house them all together with a principal, and we're going to be coordinated about the work. Sometimes we would have said, here's what ESY looks like, and that's a separate presentation. And here's what our literacy school, summer school looks like, and that's a separate presentation. We're putting them all together, and Nancy is kind of being our quarterback, as Kevin would say, to make sure that those programs are running smoothly as we go through the summer. And so I'm gonna kind of introduce, I gotta get my other presentation here. I'm gonna introduce a couple of pieces as we look at summer school, and I'm gonna invite Nancy, and then also invite Jamie DiCarlo to do a little talking about some of the individual programs that are going to be housed under summer school. Then I'll follow up with some budget numbers, some approximate budget numbers without knowing the students. And then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So next slide, please. We're going to look at the first part of our summer school program is going to be summer literacy. We did a survey to our staff. We want to make sure that we can staff all of our programs accordingly, and all of them have unique needs. And so we did a poll and said, who's interested in summer school? And if you're interested, what dates would you like summer school? And so this is kind of a serendipitous survey results, because we are going to have summer literacy run from June 28th to July 15th. The time will be from 8:30 to 3:30 to 8:30 to 11:30. So 3 hours each day with a focus on reading, writing, listening, and speaking. For the summer literacy program, we are going to be doing it by invitation. Nancy will talk a little bit about what that teacher recommendation and the scores look like. I think what's great about this program is we're really looking, I think, like we said, we're targeting some of our yellow students who are primed and we don't want to have that summer slide. We're having this free and with transportation for all of our students. So that includes wherever they need to go within our district boundaries. If they have like a house somewhere, I think we work with them. So I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to talk a little bit about what the summer literacy program is going to look like.
Perfect. If you can go to the next slide, please. The summer school literacy program that we used 2 years ago, and obviously last year because of COVID, we did not use, was more like a summer camp and less like summer school. It was less, more informal with a theme each week that would help motivate students to participate in the program. A portion of the time every day involved a variety of activities such as art, science experiments, some crafts that fit within the theme. And then all the literacy activities are going to be based around that same theme. The student feedback from 2 years ago was that really was enjoyable for the students, and they came consistently. So that was our first goal. The kindergarten the K2 program will focus on building the students who are in the TWE program. The focus will be on building the foundation of the child's language of strength, and then bridging those skills, both the reading, writing, listening, and speaking, to their second language. So if we have a Spanish speaking student, we're going to build his or her Spanish and then bridge into English. If we have an English speaking student who is also in the TWE program, we'll work on their English skills and then bridge into the Spanish. In grades 3 to 8, the TWE program and bilingual classrooms, the focus will be more on English literacy, using a linguistic bridge as needed in Spanish. You can go to the next slide, please. Another part of the summer literacy program will be a parent literacy support. There will be parent training. We'll offer it once a week for the 3 weeks. It'll be a wraparound support of literacy at home. The training will be offered virtually in the evenings, and it will be recorded so the parents can watch it in the future, or we can use it for other parent trainings. The meetings will be based on the gradual release model that Dale and Pat talked about, that the children also experience. So they'll start with reading to your child, talk about reading with your child, and then listening to your child read. The idea is that the meetings will be short and give the parents some strategies to support literacy at home without overwhelming them, and give them time to ask and answer questions. And then you can go to the next slide, please.
Okay. So that's one part of our summer school. Another part, which we talked about, I want to say was 2 years ago, was a kindergarten readiness program. We know that kindergarten is a transition for many of our students, whether it's transitioning from a daycare setting, whether it's transitioning from a home daycare setting, or transitioning from some other setting. We want to make sure that our kindergartners are set up for success. And so we didn't get an opportunity to do this because we didn't know what kindergarten was going to look like for this fall, but we are bringing this back and this is open to all students who are going to be incoming kindergartners. And it's going to run August 2nd to the 4th from 8:30 in the morning to 11. And then I'm going to have Nancy talk about some of the focus that we're going to have with our youngest learners.
So the Kindergarten Readiness Program will provide students the opportunity to ease into a new school year and begin to create a community of learners. We're hoping that they'll get to meet each other, meet some teachers, get to know the building. The focus will be on the 5 areas noted there: social emotional learning, such as self-regulation, learning to share, learning to express themselves, ask for help. We'll work on routines for learning, like where to find their supplies, how to transition from the classroom to the specialist classroom, what to bring to school, what to leave at home, how to put your things in your locker, basic activities like that. The early literacy and numeracy will begin to do a morning message, the alphabet, number counting. We'll begin some OG skill, Orton Gillingham activities, just to get the kids a little more familiar with how things will be when they get to school. And we're going to have a taste of specials, which the students will have the opportunity to meet their specials teachers and have a class with them during those 3 days. Then they'll learn how to transition from their classroom to the specials room, and they'll also get a little bit of a tour of the building, so they'll have some more familiarity. And the last section will be the mystery readers, and we're going to have important community members in the building, such as the principal, the assistant principal, social worker, nurse, come in and do a read aloud, whether it be virtually or in person, so that the students can begin to notice other community members in the building.
Next slide. So I think what you hear is we are encouraging all of our students to take part, all of our incoming kindergartners to take part in this. I think when you come and you get a feeling of familiarity, you get a feeling of familia, and so that kids can feel part of the community. Again, this will be free for all of our students, and transportation is available to all. We are encouraging all of our kindergartners to take us up on this transportation. One of the things that we see at the beginning of the year always with our kindergarten students is they don't know how to ride a bus and how to get off the bus and how do you get on the bus. And this is just an opportunity to practice some of those skills as we move through the year, or move through the summer, I should say, to prepare for the kindergarten year starting in the fall. So that's our kindergarten readiness program. And then the third piece of this is our ESY. And I'm going to ask Jamie to give a brief overview of what the ESY, or extended school year program, is.
Through the process of their IEP and at the table for their annual review, the team makes a lot of determinations for programming, and one of the conversations had at the table is if the student is eligible for extended school year services. And so what that, a student typically qualifies if there is a repetitive pattern or past history or indication that there could be some significant regression during the summer. And so therefore the student would become eligible. So not every student who has an IEP and receives IEP services is eligible for extended school year. It's a very individualized decision at the IEP table. So once students qualify, of course they're invited by the fact that they have the IEP. And right now we're collecting data from all of our case managers on the students on their caseload that qualify. Specific goals that should be addressed during extended school year are indicated in the IEP, and then those are the goals that the case manager or teacher during the summer, a certified special education teacher, would have those goals in advance. Again, I already have it populating for us, and then the summer staff, the extended school year staff, would have accessibility to that, and so that they would be able to prepare for their small group. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. And so we're looking to run it June 7th to the 24th. One of the drivers for that was in case there was any staff in special ed that wanted to also support one of the other programs in the summer. So we're just kind of staggering all of our summer programming. Any questions for me about ESY? Okay, great, thank you.
Awesome. So next slide, please. I know you've heard a lot about some of the intervention programs that we have, and it may seem like, well, where's the opportunity for enrichment for some of our students? So we will be running in partnership with the high school and the STEAM Foundation, our summer STEAM camp, and information for summer STEAM camp, I think it's called Summer Steamers, will be coming out shortly. So that will be available to all of our families as well. We've talked a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about summer literacy. We use sort of 90 to estimate based on how many staff we need, how many students there'll be with the mitigation. It's going to be an in-person. Nancy is going to just share a little bit about what that identification process looks like, and then we'll kind of go through the numbers.
Yeah, we're gonna look at students, it'll be by teacher recommendation and their data. So students who are a year behind are the students that we're gonna be looking at to put into the summer literacy program so that we can work on their unfinished learning and hopefully accelerate it so that when they come to school, they are gonna hit the ground running and be ready to catch up to their peers.
And so Nancy used the term unfinished learning, and that's the term that the state has adopted for this COVID slide, is that there's going to be topics and things that maybe we just didn't get to because of the nature of remote learning and whatnot. And so the goal of the 3-week summer school is not to finish off the curriculum. It's to keep the momentum going so that students don't have the summer slide, so that when we get to the next school year, we'll be able to, at the point of instruction of some new topic, to understand what the prerequisite knowledge is, we'll be able to intervene at that point with any unfinished learning as well. So really, summer school is about preventing that summer slide more than catching up the students from what's missed from quote unquote the COVID slide or unfinished learning. So when we look at our estimated summer programming costs, that's why we use the 90 students. It gives us kind of a goal of where we're at. It could be more, it could be less. That will depend. If it's more, then it will obviously cost us more. If it's less, it'll cost us less. We may have to do some tapping teachers on the shoulder to hopefully get creative about staffing if we go much higher than 90 students. But that's how much, based on the survey, we feel that we can adequately support. And you see the numbers, right? So the summer literacy, the transportation, the kindergarten readiness, the extended school year, and then our summer school leader, Nancy, for a total cost of $84,000 and change. I think all of this is in a budget of some sort. So I say that like some of this is going to come out of grants. Some of this is already budgeted in our FY21 budget. So none of this is an overage, but I wanted to make you aware of sort of what the general cost of summer school was going to be for this summer. And with that, we'll go to the next slide. And if there's any questions, Nancy and I and Jamie will be happy to take them.
I just want to clarify something because I've heard a couple things during this presentation. As far as the summer literacy program, you mentioned at one point that you were looking to target the kids that are approaching grade level, but then I just heard that it's targeting kids that are like a year behind. And that it would be more, that makes me think that it's more for that tier 2, tier 3 group. So like, which group are we targeting here? Because I think that those are two different groups. Like, is it the kids that are getting close to grade level that we want to give extra support to get them where we want them to be, which kind of sounds like that was our literacy goal? Or are we targeting the tier 2, 3 groups? Do you understand my question?
Yes. Nancy, do you want to take that or do you want me to?
Go ahead, you take it.
So I hear you. And yes, I think it's going to be a little bit of both because we have to look at the whole child and see where their data is. So while they might have a data point on DRA that is a year behind or half a year behind or a year and a half, we have other data points as well. And so we don't just want to, I'm giving you kind of that overall, like the yellow kids, the kids who are kind of between or just not at grade level that we need to continue the work on. So some of them will fall into, may have had a tier 2 intervention or during the school year, and some of them may not have. So it's going to be kind of between those two.
I guess my main concern is I want to give an opportunity to those kids that are getting really close to being where they need to be. If that's kind of like what our literacy goal is, I would think that we would want to include as many of those kids. So that's why I was asking that.
We do, and I would say from previous summer schools when we've talked, I think one of the things we've learned is that we're not just saying we're going to take the bottom certain number, is we really look at every child who's below grade level and decide what the best placement for that child. So everybody will have an opportunity Again, it's going to be a numbers game with staffing and social distancing and transportation and whatnot.
We generally tap into the substitute pool for summer school if we can't meet with regular staff, the needs.
I'm sorry, are you saying do we tap into the?
Or can we?
Can we?
You know, we have a couple of teachers that have asked to, we use them as substitutes in the summer. When we're talking about literacy, we really want teachers who kind of understand the continuum that students are on and becoming literate. And we really want to focus on those, getting those teachers in front of our most needy students. You know, and so would we use them? Yes, in a pinch, but that's not our primary focus.
So that pool hasn't been trained like the regular staff has.
No, I think for the sub-license, and Shane could probably tell me if I'm right or wrong, but for the sub-license, it's, I think, a college degree, and it doesn't have to be an education, whereas our teachers have to have some sort of education. And then they've had all the training this year with Pat and her team to kind of go along into the summer and use that and those instructional techniques as well.
I guess that was my question, was any of the sub pool trained by Pat and her team?
No, not this year. Well, I take that back. A couple of our long-term subs who have happened to be in a long-term sub position have participated in the professional development, but not on a large scale and not with intentionality.
I have a question about the transportation. On each of those 3 programs, that transportation will be provided to all. Does that include people that live less than 1.25 miles away from the school? They are included in that transportation?
That's what we did 2 years ago, and we plan to continue it this year.
Thank you.
We want to, I think when we think about summer school and identifying kids, however, you know, wherever they fall, we want to make this as easy as possible to get kids to the building. And so we sometimes have to go do some things a little bit different and creatively.
Especially since it's half day, so there has to be, it's half day, so it's got to be a little more creative to fit everything.
Yes, but we have, and Nancy, tell me if I'm right. I think we've had students dropped off at camp at the Park District.
Yes, we have kids dropped off at daycare, off at back
Yeah.
over to the Park District camp, wherever they need to be taken.
Yeah.
So
So
that they
we-
can participate.
Yeah, we really work with families because we really want these kids to be learning with our teachers. And I forgot, I looked at my notes, right? I wrote it on the different page, but we also are going to be offering Northern Illinois University summer reading program for all of our students. That'll be available to families. Information will be coming out soon. And then the Fremont Library has a summer reading program that will be available to families as well. So, there's lots of things available for lots of students. This is just a portion of those.
And it's a purely aspirational question, because I know we don't have unlimited resources, but is there any desire maybe to have math addressed during the summer school period in the future?
So we did have math addressed last summer with our Big Ten and algebra students because of unfinished learning that we had to get through for the high school. We haven't had those conversations with our middle school yet, and we can definitely look at the budget. And then, yeah, I would say aspirationally, is T on the call still? I would say, yeah, she's here. As long as it falls within the budget, we will have math. But we really want math. So yes, aspirationally, yes, but we're really focused on literacy right now.
Well, we're gaining about $245,000 from the federal distribution, right?
It's closer to 600,000.
Okay, 600,000. So out of that 600,000, I would think we could find like 25 to do something.
I think we can. T and I are meeting next week to go over the ESSER grant. Lot of hands in the ESSER grant pockets right now. So yes, that's totally a possibility in the future. T and I will meet on it next week.
We will need to confirm too the transportation piece, just within the 1.5 miles, making sure how that gets paid. That might need to be something different also through the grant, with how they classify that. So we will confirm that before we do send out official notices to the families.
Yes.
So just to clarify then, is math on the table for this summer or not, realistically?
Dan just
Right.
Okay, so it is. Okay.
Aspirational.
Aspirationally, yes.
But the summer school program you're asking us to vote on tonight really focuses on the literacy.
Yes.
Correct. And our focus all year has been on the literacy. And so summer school sort of takes on that same focus.
So if we had an amended summer school proposal, then that would be.
We're gonna bring something back next month.
That happen. I just think that's really important. I mean, I know we have very important literacy goals, but I hope we can make that work. That would be my sign. Well, we got the STEAM camp. I mean, the STEAM camp is a huge supplement. It is. So, and it's quite comprehensive. So.
Thank you.
Up next, human resources.
So this is a procedural mechanism. I'm seeking your approval tonight for a resolution authorizing non-reemployment of full-time, non-tenured teachers who are not in the last year of their probationary service. This is the process that follows past practice and is a necessity to abide by the collective bargaining agreement. The non-renewals are for 2 staff who are in positions that were necessitated by the pandemic and the hybrid learning model. But as we transition to next year's plan, that will change. And so this is the process that we must go through to formally share with those instructors that their role for next year will be changing. Thank you.
Up next and on the reports, it's the staffing proposal. Unlike last year, where we did have some additions that we were looking at for this school year, this year we went through a similar process back when T started meeting with admin, talking about where we saw our enrollment numbers and how they were progressing through the grades, looking at what guidelines had been established for classroom numbers. As the team got together and was working through that, what it looks like, we're not going to need to add any positions for this year. Overall, there is actually a decrease of 4 positions. 2 of them were for non-renewals. Other 2 were half-time positions that we're able to take into other positions so that we could cover them that way. So long and short of it, we're bringing a proposal for staffing to where we're pretty much staying status quo except for the decrease in the 4 positions that we had. Typically, we'd come to you and really need it for increasing of staff, but since we're not increasing staff, but we're still providing the information to make sure you as a board are aware. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Adam, calendar, please. So last month, we reviewed the school calendars. And the 2023 calendar, the board had a request for us to take that back and to review the December 23rd date. It was originally a emergency day. So we met with the committee, the calendar committee, the week after or last week. As we talked through that, what we ended up doing was making December 23rd a non-attendance day. We ended up moving the emergency day to June 8th. Agreed upon, and then the other thing that we did, Sunday starts on the left and Saturday's on the right.
I heard people say that. They were like, what was up with that? It's so very good.
I appreciate that, and I will also say thank you, because I do know that even after we approved last month the 21-22 calendar, it was changed before it was published to the parents.
Yep.
Thank you. It's a lot easier to read.
Good thing on it. Should figure that one out. So those are the two, let me see, on here. The other item, at least while then I'm up here, before I ask Mark and Anthony to come up. The other item for us, I'm asking for the board, if you would be willing to have a special board meeting on April 28th, with a start time of 7 o'clock. The purpose of that meeting would be able to close the business with our current board seated, thank our board members that will not be returning with us, and to bring the new board members on to the board, and then set the reorganization with identifying the president, vice president, and secretary. Thought process is just having the meeting focus on that, and then be able to have the May meeting be the first official meeting when the new board members would be seated. Just start with the meeting. So that's the other request that we do have for you on my behalf.
As far as calendars go, just going back to that, if we end up passing the summer school piece of that tonight, then I guess a calendar we approved last month would need to be updated to include that, like for the kindergarten readiness, et cetera.
What do you mean?
Well, like if we approve the summer school, and if summer school, the readiness would be August, what was it, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? Wouldn't that need to be updated on the calendar that for next school year that we've already approved? For the purposes of the website, the calendar that gets put up there?
Yes, we would shift that to, if it has the summer school dates would be listed on the website, is what you're saying.
That's not part of the official calendar, the
Yeah.
number of days and
Okay.
stuff, no.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's a slightly different question.
So not the calendar we were talking about.
No, I didn't realize that the summer school didn't get listed on our official calendar that we've already approved. So if we approve summer school dates, they don't go on the calendar?
No.
Okay.
Thank you for.
Interpreting now.
So there's like a state mandated
Yeah.
school calendar and then other things
You
we
can have all sorts of
we
other
can
stuff.
do.
Yes.
Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess this is a question that relates back to, and I know we've already passed it, but the summer school for the kindergarten readiness. If we're going to do that August, whatever it was, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, does that take, because I know that we don't usually have our kindergartners come in on the first day of school. And in my experience, then half the kids come in the morning with their parents, half the kids come in the afternoon and do essentially what sounds like you're talking about trying to do on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So will we still be having those kindergartners come on the 2nd day of school as their first day of school? Or does that take the place or change if we put this kindergarten readiness program into effect?
Well, we typically don't get all the kindergartners.
Right?
So I think we'd still keep the calendar the same way, and
Okay.
we just have more kids prepared to go through that
Okay,
process.
it was just,
I'm learning too, because
Yeah.
I've actually only had 1 year of going through the kindergarten process.
well, and I've had 2 kids in our district do kindergarten because we moved here when one was in 1st grade, so I can't speak to how that happened, but it was very different in 5 years between kid 2 and kid 3, so where there was nothing for kid 3, there was no kindergarten readiness, there was no, and it's different every year. I'm just curious if that was taking the place of, but it doesn't sound like that is. It would be in addition
It'd be in
to, hoping
addition
to get more kids. Okay,
because we still need to have the kids get the practice and everything.
sure.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Up next, then, I'd like to ask Mr. Pyle to come forward and to share with the board the conversation in regards to proposal of start times for school.
Yeah, let's start there about noon.
Good. Sometimes, yeah, that would be nice. But, hello, good evening. My name is Mark Pilot. I'm the principal at Sandburg. We are here, I'm here with Dr. Kroll, as well as representing the other principals in District 75 as we've worked through this process. We are here to give you some information. This is just a proposal. We started on this last year before the pandemic shut down. Dr. Kroll and Mundelein High School had approached me about start times due to some equity issues that they had occurring up at the high school, and with our shared transportation routes, was wondering if we can solve it. As the team moved into looking at that, we found a lot of research. If you could go to the next slide, these are the two reasons that we are bringing this proposal forward. We found quite a bit of research. It's been around for a while about older students starting in middle school and up to high school having the benefit of a later school start time. And so it just increases, the studies have shown it increases their total sleep time. Most of that in the adolescent world is due to extracurriculars and different activities that are going on, and then coming home as the kids get older and doing the schoolwork, and we start the day earlier, so they lose sleep time. If we start the day later, they would, of course, gain that sleep time. It decreases on tardiness, absenteeism, performance test scores increase, and the self-reported depression that kids self-report on decreases as well. So based on all of this, I got together with the principals in District 75 along with Dr. Kroll, as well as Mike Pope, the AP at Mundelein High School. And we put a plan together on, if you would go to the next slide, that has a zero net cost increase. So we can do this without spending any more money on transportation, which is rather exciting. To do that, each of the schools made some compromises. And if you would go to the next slide, Anna, you can see what we've developed. So our start times would shift. Washington would start at 7:45, MG at 8, Sandburg at 8:15, Mundelein High School at 8:40. Lincoln does not get impacted due to the schedule of their day, and they also contract with Fremont. We contract with Fremont to transport the little ones over to Lincoln. So basically, you can see the school day stays the same. It's still 6 hours and 15 minutes for the kids, a little bit longer at Sandburg and Mundelein High School. The pickup times are aligned. They meet the needs of what transportation needs to do in order to share our routes and save us the money, which is why we're doing the shared service. And if you would go to the next slide, this does not impact the teacher contract. Our teachers still work a 7.25-hour day. Our certified staff would remain on the the times may shift a little bit, but their hours would stay the same, their total number of hours worked per day. The length of the school day for the kids remains the same. There's minimal impact because of the way we scheduled it and the travel distance within the conference for Sandburg after school programming. And so what we've done is through the shared service model and working with our high school colleagues, as well as everyone in District 75, basically have put this proposal together for you. So Anna, if you could go to the next slide. And the next step is Dr. Kroll, if presented with me to the Mundelein High School Board last Tuesday. And basically what our next steps are is this is information for you guys. If you would like us to pursue this, we would then have some community focus groups, because this is a change. And as you noticed, when Sandburg went from 7:45 this year to 8:30, people panicked. So we want to get out in front of that and alert people. We would define the necessary scheduling components, like what happens to, fifth grade band, what time would that start? How do we do supervision? And then if we can get it all together, we have an ambitious goal of bringing that back to you in April, maybe May, depending. So those are our next steps. So this is just a complete proposal. We have done nothing other than talk to District 120's board, our board, to let you know that we can move forward with this, and it does work with a zero net cost. And we're excited to offer that opportunity for our older students. So Dr. Kroll's here with me. So I don't know what, I kind of stole all your talking points.
You did a great job. You are awesome.
Well,
and a great principal.
You were a good mentor last week. So
one of the issues that the high schools had for the number of years is we started at 7:45 in the morning. Our buses arrive at 7 in the morning. That's a 45-minute wait for our students in the morning, and then 3:05 end time, and the buses weren't leaving until 3:45. So we had about an hour and a half for students who were bus riders. That was time that we tried in many different ways to address, but ultimately it just led to a lot of kids just hanging in school. So we wanted to make it more efficient for kids, more, and a better product. So this is one of those discussions that we've had for a long time. But because we share buses, we have an hour delay between when we drop off at Mechanics Grove or at Washington, and then because of our geographical distance, it takes about an hour for us to go pick up all those kids to drop them off at home.
So was the 120 board receptive to this as well?
And their discussion, they were receptive to it, and they said, go ahead and continue with the discussions and bring back a more solid proposal later.
Quick question. So it says in the draft that the transportation drop-off pickup times. At Sandburg, school ends at 3:11, and then the pickup time is at 3:30.
Yes.
And then the high school ends at 3:20, and then the pickup time is at 3:25.
One more back.
I think it's one more back.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to clarify, like, why wouldn't we just flip those?
So
I was just wondering why that's like a 19-20 minute gap there.
The gap is because in this model, Sandburg's sharing its buses with MG, and so we need that time. And we don't know, like, one of the things we haven't figured out, MG shifted their time from 8 to 2:15. So based on further discussions with transportation, Sandburg could get out as late as, we could start a little bit later and we could get out a little bit later. Or so we just kind of put 3:30 in there to make sure. Sam, we kept it in our heads.
So that could change.
That could change, but it would.
Because I would recommend that, because you're kind of running into the same issue of like having kids loitering around the building, which doesn't probably equate to good things.
Right, and as we briefly discussed this with the staff, one of the opportunities we would take, I mean, it's 19 minutes, so it's almost 20 minutes, and we're experimenting with like a 20-minute kind of end of the day homeroom time right now. So for those bus riders who are kind of loitering, I think we have, because they're younger, we can elicit a little more influence to get them in and do homework than I'm sure what high school, as they grow and recognize their independence, what Dr. Kroll and the high school staff have been dealing with. So that was one of the ideas. And so they needed one of us to be a little more flexible, and our staff kind of said, yeah, I think we may be able to manage that. But that could change and be only 10 minutes, or it could flip. We're just looking for your blessing, as we said, to kind of say, yeah, go ahead and investigate it. We'll finalize it and then bring it forward.
Well, and similarly, the pickup times for Washington and MG, I mean, obviously there has to be some time to leave the classroom and get to the bus. That doesn't have that built.
Just push them right out.
Right.
Right.
I know MG is usually pretty good at getting those times, but And then another question I had was, I saw that you were planning to do some focus groups and stuff for the next, how will you be pulling parents for those focus groups?
So I think we haven't talked about it yet as principals, but I know in District 75, we would probably work with the PTO to pull the parents in, and then work with George Moncada and Natalia to gather some of our bilingual information as well, whether it's through BPAC, and pull through those groups, kind of get the message out. Whether we do one big meeting like before a PTO meeting, which we've done in the past for things like this, or did individual school meetings, the principals would have to work that out.
Because my only thought would be, I think some of the people that screamed the loudest, like you said in the fall, when you went from 7:45 to 8:30, was how that impacts after-school activities that are not school-related, and how far in advance people need to plan around that for rides, transportation, lessons, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think the piece about Sandburg is it does shift us to half an hour, but from the little bit of kind of staff polls we took and on that question, we couldn't really, like, most of the stuff, it's about getting the kids home, getting them dinner or a snack, and then doing a little work to get them off to their next activity, whatever that may be, ice skating, soccer, horseback, riding. So we think we have enough time in there, but that's one of the things that we would figure out.
What's the biggest change from start time now? Is it Washington?
Yeah, Washington currently starts at, if we were not in COVID, if it was a normal school year, Washington their drop-off time would be 8:30 and their school start time would be 8:45.
Oh.
So it's almost an hour earlier. That's the biggest change. MG is 15 minutes, Sandburg is a half hour, and the high school is an hour. 55 minutes.
I was just curious, Dr. Kroll, if MHS gets out now, around 3, but then there's like this pause before like sports teams can start, is that time was meant for students to get with teachers?
It is an opportunity for students to do so, and it's one that we've mined for quite a while.
Right.
But not with great success.
Okay, because I remember a couple of years ago when you went to it.
Right.
Thinking.
Ultimately, it's the inequity for any bus rider is the main concern. That was the main piece that we were finding. Students that stayed after, they would find the help, or they would get it another way.
So were the bus students able to use that time, or no, they had to go report to the bus loading area?
No, they were able to use that time.
They were,
but
there was a lot.
But it wasn't a universally used time to a great extent.
Any other questions?
So is it totally off the wall to try something like a survey to a large group?
For the parents?
Yeah.
Sure, we could ask.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least they'd potentially be on notice then.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you get, 300 replies going, what the world are you thinking about? You know, you've got a real issue as opposed to.
But are we really talking, we're not really talking about a survey, we're talking more about a poll, like, well, because we keep, throughout the year, we keep saying, well, we're gonna put out a survey, when we're really just asking for a selection, a yes or no.
Well, so you could do it either way, but I
Right.
mean, I think maybe a more forced selection would probably be a better idea. That way you get a yes, no answer
Well, I
rather
guess-
than 300 individual comments, but.
Well, when I was referring to the selection, we keep calling everything a survey, but I was talking about the selection of, remote or in person. But in this regard, it's more of a poll, like, here's the plan we're thinking of, rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, or a yes or no, or something to that effect, rather than a survey, which is, do you want scenario A, scenario B, or scenario C? Both, it's semantics, but it's the difference between.
I would agree. And we could, I guess my question would be, if we did a poll, and and it came back 50-50.
Good
You
one,
guys, what do you want to do with that? Because, I mean, we're thinking about this decision, it's in the best interest of kids.
Right.
The research supports it. The younger kids, it's, you know, they have more structured bedtimes, they don't have activities, they tend to get to sleep, they tend to get up, and they're up and ready to go at 6. I mean, that was one of the things just in general conversations with the middle schoolers, is they like the later start time. The other thing was that from parents, they said, man, I wish you had flipped it.
Yeah.
Because the younger kids, they were like eating cereal and doing stuff, and the older kids were sleeping, and then they got up and went to class. That was a comment that I just heard from our middle school families who had kind of that broader range, just anecdotally. So, you know, we have the educational interest of our kids, so if it's a 50-50 split or
So I would throw
whatever,
that as part of
you
the
know.
poll or whatever, in terms of, here's some reasons we're doing, not just because we want
Well,
to change times,
sure.
but there is some
Right.
areas that
Research,
seem
yeah.
to indicate that there's an improvement and rationale, if you will.
I think that it makes sense to continue moving forward with the plan so that we can, because we wouldn't be voting on it today anyway. This is a
Right.
vote that we would take, say, next month. I think it would be helpful to have a poll or something with some notice out to families ahead of time with some data so that we as a board can then feel armed with, yes, our parents want it, no, they don't. If they come back at 50-50, I
Yeah.
guess then it's up to us.
Right.
I mean, it'd be up to us either way, but that, because I know that that's a big issue with people not quite understanding that the board meeting is a board meeting, business board meeting, it's not a town hall. And yes, we take comments at the beginning to hear from the community, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in line with what our agenda is for that day. But doing a poll in advance of a vote that does significantly change things that do impact families, that gives us some knowledge that then we can all use to vote with.
Sure.
So I
Yeah,
think
and
that that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think I would rather give, hey, here's what we're thinking on a scale of 1 to 5. Here's why, and on a scale
And
of
we
1
will
to
be
5.
giving the data to the school
Right.
board to vote next month
Yeah.
or whatever, so
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
at least have an opportunity,
I
whether
think
to
the
take
here's
it or
why
not.
is really important.
Yeah, we can craft that.
And that might apply, the same survey to staff members also, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, and we haven't gone anywhere with this. I mean, we've alerted the
Yeah.
union to it, but we really haven't talked with
So the
them
next
or
step,
anything. So we wanted to, I mean, you're our first stop. So. All right.
So go forward is what we're hearing then?
Yep.
and
Yes.
All right.
feedback.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
That be it? Okay, so is there any other discussion warranted on any of the topics we've heard from tonight? Or any, and I don't mean to forget Rob. Can you hear me, Rob? We're just soliciting if there's any discussion needed, before we go further. The next item would be the consent agenda.
Nope, I'm good.
Good? Okay, so as far as the consent agenda, does anybody wish to have items removed and voted on separately or tabled for further discussion? We're good?
Hearing none, Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Price,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Dupont,
Aye.
Gallegos,
Aye.
St. Clair,
Aye.
Figurehead, aye.
Alrighty. What? Just move on now to the board action items.
Yep.
And we have the motions in front of us.
On the recommendation of the superintendent, I move the Mundelein Board of Education, District 75, accepts this recommendation to adopt the FY21 amended tentative budget as presented.
Second.
Gallegos, Price,
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Erickson.
Aye.
Dupont.
Aye.
All right, I'll read the next one. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the fiscal year 2020 tentative budget on display.
Second.
We'll
2022, right?
Yeah,
2022, is that what I said?
You should, whatever.
2022. Fingerhut seconded.
All right. Holly, I'm sorry. Absent. Holly's absent. St. Clair.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Price.
Aye.
Dupont.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
All
I
right.
move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the contract with the Village of Mundelein for police services at a cost not to exceed in FY 2021-22, $62,600, FY 2022-23, $63,900, FY 2023-24, $65,200, and FY 2024-25, $66,500.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Erickson.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Dupont. Dupont.
No.
Aye. Gallegos.
No.
Gotcha. St. Clair.
Aye.
Holly.
Aye.
Let it be noted that the president joined at 9:05.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to adopt a resolution authorizing intervention in property tax assessment appeals for the property at 345 North Seymour.
Second.
Price.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Dupont.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Holly.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the described framework and cost for summer school in District 75.
Second. Erickson.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Dupont.
Aye.
He's a robot.
All right. Price.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Holly.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye. Let's see.
We are at the bottom one.
You can't just read the top part of it because both of those are listed in the resolution. So if we're approving the resolution, our understanding is that it encompasses the two names.
Two that are in there.
So on my sheet, there are actually two separate line items to vote. We don't have to vote twice.
Didn't think so, but if you want to be safe, do it twice.
Anna says twice, so.
Twice it is.
She's the boss.
For clarification, okay. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the attached resolutions to reduce the following certified teaching staff. 1, the administration recommends the Board of Education motion to approve the resolution authorizing non-reemployment of full-time, non-tenured teacher Shannon Alexander.
Second.
Aye. St. Clair.
Aye.
Holly.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Dupont.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the attached resolutions to reduce the following certified teaching staff. Item number 2, administration recommends the Board of Education motion to approve resolution authorizing non-reappointment of full-time, non-tenured teacher Claudia Santa Maria.
Second.
Erickson.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
St. Clair. Aye. Holly?
Aye.
Dupont?
Aye.
Aye. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to accept the 2022-2023 school calendar as presented.
Second?
Fingerhut, aye. Holly?
Aye.
St. Clair? Aye. Price?
Aye.
Dupont?
Aye.
Gallego?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve a special board meeting on April 28th, 2021.
Second.
Fingerhut, aye. Gallegos?
Aye.
St. Clair? Aye. Holly?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
Dupont?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
I don't have the language to
Okay, I move that the Board of Education enter into executive session in order to go over the minutes of the last executive session.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Fingerhut, aye. Dupont?
Aye.
Price?
Aye.
St. Clair? Aye. Gallegos? Now that it is 9:10.
It's just.
Takes so little to use it. Rob know he has to hang up and redial in.
Sign language. Yeah, I apologize.
We're live now.
Okay, let's reestablish a quorum. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Holly?
Here.
Gallegos?
Here.
Fingerhut, here. Price?
Here.
Dupont?
Here.
Erickson?
Here.
St. Clair? St. Clair? Here. Okay.
Okay, I move that we approve the executive session minutes of February 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly?
Aye.
Fingerhut? Aye. Erickson?
Aye.
Dupont?
Aye.
St. Clair? Aye. Gallegos?
Aye.
Price?
Aye. 9:15. Okay, next and last on the agenda, President's Prerogative. The superintendent's evaluation is well underway, although I'm still missing evaluations from 2 board members. I was hoping to maybe talk about them tonight in executive session, but they're not done. So, or not everyone has completed their evaluation, so we need to finish that. I asked that they would have been done on Sunday night.
I think I did.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm never sure. I guess go share it. I was like, yeah, okay.
I will acknowledge I completely forgot. I apologize.
We're not looking for a confession.
I know,
Yes,
but I'm being honest that I'm sorry I forgot. I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not calling anybody out.
Well, okay.
Sorry to imply, well said.
Well, no,
You're good, you're good.
Trying to make sure.
So I will compile that information. I've compiled all the ones I have. I have 5 of the 7, so I just need 2 more. So, and then we'll do that, and then what we'll do is we'll, I'll share that with you as soon as I get the rest of them, and then we will meet in executives, and I'll share it with Dr. Myers also, and then we will meet in executive session at our next meeting and talk about it with him. Okay, that's what we do.
Excuse me. Never mind.
I'm gonna text.
Never mind.
Rob, we're having trouble understanding you because of the internet.
Something about remind him, I think.
Maybe he's confessing.
Maybe it's he and I that are, sorry.
Well, he's muted now, so.
I think he's texting.
Or texting.
Oh, he's texting, okay.
Okay.
You know, if he turns his video off, it'll work better.
just let us know, Rob, one way or the other.
He's not texting me.
Then the next thing we were gonna talk about was, we were gonna just circle back to our equity stuff that we talked about at our last meeting. Honestly, Lisa and Dr. Myers and I forgot to put it on the agenda for this meeting, and then I apologize, it was kind of my fault, because Wells emailed, Lisa emailed, but I got my second vaccine on Saturday after working all day, and then I was wiped out on Sunday, and I didn't look at any emails, or I didn't read the board packet until yesterday, or until last night. So I apologize, but I was just not in any, it's hard to read the computer screen when you're shivering so much, but anyway.
So I have a suggestion. So we have another meeting in April, right?
Yeah.
All right, so could I suggest to A, that we put that back, the one about creating the board committee, and we, hash it out? Somebody will make a motion, it'll either get a second or not, it'll either change it or vote. And then I have another one that I would like to introduce that is, I didn't bring it up for everybody, I don't think so. Is sort of related to that.
Is this a new policy?
I think it is. I don't think we've got one. I actually got it from a different school board. I have to share that.
I'll read it.
All right. You've seen it. It's the one from
Have I?
Skokie. Yeah. It says the superintendent is responsible for,
Okay.
which I think is some ways related.
Is it an equity policy? Is that what it is?
No,
Yeah,
it's,
controversial issues.
Oh.
yeah. It says
Is
if
it
they're.
part of an equity policy? or
I
is
think
it
it's related to it, yes.
It's separate.
Yes.
You want me to make a copy real quick?
Carrie, I mean, so,
I got it.
yeah. And I have it in a PDF. I can send it to everybody when.
Policy 6.80, it says.
Yeah, I don't know if we have an existing policy or not, but I think we do, if I recall. But I don't think this one is in there of our current policies.
Yeah, try to word it differently.
Okay.
I can research that and search the.
Yeah, I tried to look on ours and I didn't have it. I was, I know we're supposed to be online, but I could find Skokie's online.
Is this this isn't in the classroom, though. This is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It says all school-sponsored presentations and discussions, and in it says assemblies and ceremonies. Oh, it does say curriculum development.
So now
The school-sponsored discussions taking place in a classroom, I would think.
So then the tricky part's gonna be, and there's a reference in there about to their contract, there's something in our contract too that talks about, it's the proper teacher term.
Like teacher autonomy?
Yeah.
You want to bring that up?
We run that back in April.
Yeah.
6/80.
I mean, I'm not trying to, I think, well, I'll send you a copy so you can send it out with the, board packet and people can look at it and choose to do whatever they want to.
Okay, so then, sorry, I'm sending the evaluation again to Rob because he said he didn't get it. Okay. So is this considered a first reading then? Okay. So with next
Well,
one.
I'm gonna make a motion to vote on it next meeting, so you can do whatever you want to. If there's anything in I don't think our rules and regulations or policies that says there has to be 2 readings.
Okay. And then the only other question I have, since we're talking about that particular item.
Yep.
This has gone through the policy committee?
No.
Okay. All right. All right, since we're on this sort of topic for next meeting, anyone have anything? It's gonna be the last meeting, well, kind of the last meeting. That we'll do business at the meeting after that, the special meeting will just for the reorganization. And, anyone have anything else they would want to bring at the next meeting? Rob, you have anything? Okay, Rob, if you have something, email me in case we can't hear you.
You should have said no.
Oh, did you? Okay, sorry, I was looking down. Okay, now we were gonna, like I said, we're gonna circle back to the equity policies.
I don't know, where do we want to go from here from the last meeting? I'm not sure where we want to head now. But
Establish the concept of a committee to take it forward,
The board
right?
committee, right?
And then,
Okay, I have a question about that. This is what I'm just not clear about. Are we talking about creating an equity policy committee? Or are we talking about creating an equity policy? Because I would assume that you come up with an equity policy committee, you do all the things that we want to do. We want to get input from people. We wanted to let people know what's going on. And then we come up with an equity policy? Is that what we're looking at? Okay.
Right.
Okay, so it's different than we're gonna have an equity policy. We're gonna talk about an equity policy committee. That's what we're doing. Okay, I just want to make sure that I was clear on that because I wasn't quite, because Lisa had like the beginnings of an equity policy
yeah, I
and
mean,
that stuff.
and
So
that
we're-
was part of the other
so-
stuff to just
Yeah,
give
that's
some
why I
background
didn't
of
quite
where
get
boards
where we were
have
going.
gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
That
wasn't
makes
here,
more
so
sense.
basically the discussion was a creation of an equity policy committee with a whole bunch of different stakeholders with the goal of creating an equity policy.
Right, okay. Okay, so do we want to talk about that anymore? Or do we want to wait till next time? Kurt, you weren't here. Do you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine. I would imagine that we would want to, input from a whole bunch of different people on that. And, I think it's important. So, yeah, I think we should do that.
The only reservation I had, and I talked about this last month, was that we seem to have like 2 tracks now. Because the administration already has one going. And I feel like, that's going to include, those 2 groups are going to include lots of the same kind of type of people. So I just wonder,
Well,
is
and
that
they
what we
had
want? Do we want to go
offered-
2 different branches of it?
They had offered to be a resource to the board, so it's not like they're not.
I would think that they would be one of the, a representative or 2 from that committee should be part of the one of the stakeholders that are
Right.
part
Yeah.
of the other committee. We don't need to be working in parallel. We want to do it, but it's that ours is with the specific goal of writing a policy for the board to go in our policies, whereas they might be writing other curriculum, doing different things. So it's, I think they should work in tandem, but with slightly different purposes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I agree with Kurt that I think that committee should not exist in a vacuum either. They should be part of the stakeholders that are included in our committee.
And then the other question I had is, I'm trying to remember because it's been a month. How many board members are in this committee?
Oh,
One with an alternate.
of which committee? What are you talking
The
about?
equity policy committee that you proposed.
Okay.
Okay, right now we got one and an alternate.
I'd have to look at what the draft was, I don't know.
Okay, Bill, I can't remember.
Well,
I just-
I mean,
So-
and that
so, yeah.
could be something to discuss too, because we had talked about having it in open meetings, right?
Yes?
So it could be
You get
free.
multiple, yeah.
It could be, everyone drops in because, it's the
I mean,
kickoff.
the reason I ask is because it feels like to me, if we're gonna have a board committee on to create an equity policy, that there should be more than one board member.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Because
yeah, for
policy
sure.
has 2,
I would
finance
think
has 2,
Many
right?
as want to contribute.
Okay.
I mean, and if it's obviously 3 or more, then we have to publish it, but
Right,
we're probably gonna be doing
but
that.
what I'm saying is that's the way it's written. So I just want to say,
Oh,
do we want, to not have one board member and an alternate? Because then that means one board member and an alternate, I don't know. That's why I'm just asking. If we're gonna create this policy to have this committee, then we should be really specific about what it should be,
I hear Kevin saying that he would vote for it if it had more than one board member and an alternate, and I would agree with him.
Yeah.
Well, I would
No,
say,
I'm just saying,
whoever.
should there, if it's a board committee.
it should
to
be have a minimum amount of
Yes.
board members.
Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to
Okay.
get. That's where I was trying to
So
go,
we
yeah,
can set what that is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
and it maybe should be more than one, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
It
So the
should-
reason
it
it's
should
a
definitely
board
be more than
committee
Yeah.
is, this is
a policy that the board is adopting that says there's going to be this equity policy committee, and it shall have this membership, right? Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to have, it can have, if you want to, more than 2 board members on it to be a board committee, right? If you have the 3 potential board members on it, then you will definitely have to go through the open meetings process each and every time. The other way would be to have it less than 2 and say, yes, it's an open meeting, but you're not keeping minutes, you're not, that sort of thing. But other people are allowed to come. I mean, you can, I think, do it either way. Depends on what the preference of the members of the board are. Are you going to find that you have 3 or 4 board members that actually want to attend and do the amount of work required to understand the subject well? I don't know.
Okay. So along everything that we've been talking about, what I would say is maybe change it to at least 1 board member instead of 1 board member and an alternate.
Why don't we say at least 2 board members?
Or at least 2 board members.
Yeah.
I think everyone,
Do you want a draft sent out and then independently feedback? Because we can do a little
We
work
could do that
without having
on like a common document.
No.
No, oh, no, you can't.
No, I can't.
No.
So
I mean,
we could send out a draft, people can individually send comments, and then I can create another
Or I would-
draft based. So when we get to next month, we have something pretty solid.
I mean, I would suggest, like, let's hash out any changes we want to make to what you wrote now. And then you could make those changes and then send out a draft that we would vote on at the next meeting. You know what I'm saying? Because we've already seen it once. We've talked about it a little bit last time. We're talking some very specific things this time. So if there's anything else that anyone would like to alter or, you're in favor of, and then Lisa can make those changes and then we can, yeah.
Minimum.
It's sort of like, when we do the press stuff, we get the first reading and we ask questions and we wonder about something, and if we need to make changes, and then we vote it at the next. It's the same, similar kind of thing.
And then should that be added to that, or is that still
Because it's
an
different.
open
It's a
question?
separate, but I would,
And I'm gonna research
I'm
if
gonna-
there's an existing policy that gets at
Yeah.
that. Do we wanna look at, compare the language? Okay.
procedurally, assuming you come up with a draft that we all decide and vote on and pass at the next meeting, would we be waiting until that reorganization meeting to decide who's going to be part of that? I would suggest we do that rather than determining which couple of board members are going to be on it before we have all of the new board members here. Even if we pass it and create the committee at the next time, I would ask that we wait until the organization meeting to
I think that
populate
makes sense.
the new committee. That's all
That
I'm
makes
saying.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, before Wells walks out the door, I'm gonna appoint him to the committee, so.
I've already.
You don't want me on
He
there.
remember, he said no.
Okay, so anything else about the equity policy committee proposal? I was giving that to you so you could have it.
she's got a
Or
copy.
do you have a copy?
I somewhere, I don't.
Okay,
I have it in the
You
PDF. I would be glad
You can
to send it to you.
blast it out.
okay, that's fine. All right, so anything else about the equity policy committee proposal? Okay. Anything else about equity we want to talk about? We want to talk about timeline?
So, well, if we're going on the assumption we seat new board members, do we hit them up at the special meeting? Do we wait till then May? And then we're talking more about.
One of the things we do when we reorganize is we sort of try to plug people into the committee
Yeah.
slot, so.
Okay.
I would think that's a good
I would
time
think
to
that would
do
be
it.
a more appropriate time to talk about a timeline.
Especially, I don't know if the new people are listening, but remember at the last reorganization meeting, we got the new people suckered into doing some jobs like right away, the first night. So, we do that again.
Well, I think we have one position all teed up for somebody. Just haven't decided who the somebody is.
I think Freddie volunteered.
No, it was on the recording. Let me check the minutes.
Well,
I think it was before the.
I'm not put it in the minutes.
No, that's
Well,
fine.
we approved the personnel report, so we also have a major change in staff
Coming.
that
a position will be posted, I
potentially
imagine.
impacts that quite a lot as well. So, you know, I don't know, you know, in terms of timeline, that's what's gonna be, I don't know who's gonna, you know, drive the.
Right. So here's, Lisa, here's what I was thinking about this equity policy. I was thinking, at the bare minimum, let's say we want to have the District 75 equity policy done by this date. And then we just kind of work backwards and say, listen, this is important, you know, we need to do in the next, you know, or this is not important and we're going to do it 3 years from now. I mean, you know, we should decide. Maybe we could do that. Maybe people could think about that. We could talk about that next week. Like, you know, and I don't know, Kevin, can we talk to someone on the other committee and talk about, you know, I don't know, what am I trying to say? I'd like to get some information, like how long should this take? Because didn't you say the high school board had worked on it or the committee had worked on it for a couple of years, right?
Well,
not the policy.
no,
Not the policy,
they
okay.
talked about the topic. I think
Okay, the
the
topic.
policy was a pretty quick exercise because they went with the two examples, a hybrid, and then it was probably, a few months?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So I envisioned it would probably be a few months. I would not want this to be dragged out because we've already dragged it out from when we first talked about the concept of putting together a policy.
All right, how about this? I'm going to make a bold suggestion. How about by the time school starts in August, we have an equity policy?
I think that that's reasonable.
That's totally reasonable. Yeah, that's.
I mean, the summer is usually a little, you know, not as high.
Gives us a chance to pull together the stakeholders that are already part of the others and anyone else that we can get to do that, to be part of it and try to do that for the school year. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I wouldn't want it to go too far beyond that.
August 16th, 17th, something like that, right? Anyway, we had the 22-23 school year. Okay, under president's, I'm going to do this under president's prerogative because I didn't think about it ahead of time. But when Alexandria left the board, I told Kevin that I would take over her CEDAW responsibilities, and I totally blew the first one, which I think was in December. So I attended the February meeting via Zoom, and there's really just two things to report. They we approved the governing board, which is like one member from all the districts that are part of CEDAW, as opposed to the executive board, which is like just a certain group of people from the general population. That like, it's like the executive committee, they meet once a month. The other meetings are just like quarterly. So the two big things that happened was they approved a new contract for the superintendent. I think it's a 3-year contract. And then the other thing is that it looks like they're about a week or two behind District 75 in terms of bringing more kids back. So wherever we are, they're a week or two behind us. But they're headed to, we just approved having kids come back, having more kids come back for more days. So sort of like what we're doing in the last period of time. So those are really the only two things that were going on. It was actually a really quick meeting. I thought.
CEDAW approved more students coming back?
Yeah, like more full-time in the building. More days, thank you. More days.
For that, I thought you meant from a program point of view. Sorry.
No.
Misunderstood. Okay, got it.
Pandemic.
Okay, got it.
Issues, you know, that kind of thing.
In person versus.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, yeah. So, and they have some serious like staff shortages right now. They're hiring like a ton of people, so. But that's late. It's only quarterly, so that's why I missed the December one, so I wanted to make sure
Well, that kind of brings up a good question, because we used to have like more board members assigned to things, because I think, Rob, you used to go to city things.
The village,
There
yeah.
was the STEAM, and.
The agenda used to include a committee
Do we
update
want to
and report.
reevaluate who we have doing what?
We'll do that at the
But that's the
reorganization.
reorganization, yeah.
So drag out that policy because there are certain appointed positions that board members should be appointed to. And I have relinquished my STEAM trusteeship.
Oh, I mean, are you a member anymore, or?
No.
Okay, so and I had resigned too, so we don't have a STEAM presence from the board. do we need one? I don't, I mean, we were board members
Well,
of
it's part
the
of their
STEAM
bylaws, so
Foundation,
you gotta
but-
get it, you should have them change their bylaws if, as well as there's either the superintendent or their designee is part of the STEAM trustees as well.
Or we ask somebody to, I mean, what does
To
it
be
take
a
to be a
trustee.
trustee of the STEAM Foundation?
Attend meetings,
accept you.
sort of
Well, right, but I
monthly,
mean,
and-
if that's one,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
the two of you have resigned
Sure.
and you won't be here, then maybe that's something we find out if somebody has an interest in doing
Yeah.
of the new board too.
And if nobody does, then they need to change the bylaws, like, sounds like, and
Yeah.
then we can continue to have a relationship with them, it's just not somebody sitting on the board.
So let's take one step at a time. Let's find out what committees we'd like to try to fill from us and how many spots we have and what the interest is.
Okay, that sounds good, Jen. So it will be like the week after our last,
April
last like
28th.
business meeting, yeah. Okay, that's all I have. That's all I have for President's Prerogative. Anyone have anything else they want to bring for the good of the board? Hearing none, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Fingerhut, aye. Dupont,
Aye.
right?
Aye.
Gallego,
Aye.
St. Clair. Aye.
Board stands adjourned.
9:39.
I don't know, 9:58, but okay.